Millionaire notices a 5-year-old girl drawing on the sidewalk. Everyday homeless mother reveals the heartbreaking truth behind her art. The crystal chandeliers cast a soft glow over the annual Harrison Foundation Charity Gala, where Benjamin Harrison stood at the podium, his voice steady but distant. "Last year we donated $20 million to children's causes," he announced to polite applause from the black tie crowd. 10 blocks away, a small figure huddled on a cold sidewalk. 5-year-old Mia clutched worn chalk pieces, meticulously drawing a house with a red roof. Above it, she carefully marked another X on her chalk calendar, day 127 of waiting for her mother. A homeless woman watched silently from the shadows, clutching a worn photograph of a little girl who looked just like Mia. Watch this heartwarming story while drinking your morning coffee or unwinding after work. Drop a comment with your location and hit subscribe to join our community. Your support means the world to us. Every evening, as the sun painted San Francisco's streets in golden hues, a small figure could be found on Cedar Street's worn sidewalk. 5-year-old Mia Marshall, her dark curls falling over determined brown eyes, would carefully arrange her treasured collection of chalk pieces, 7 colors, all worn to tiny stubs. Her small fingers would grasp each one with practiced care, knowing exactly how much pressure to apply to make them last another day. The ritual began precisely at 5 p.m., when the bakery across the street turned off its open sign. First came the foundation, a house, always the same design, with a bright red roof and white walls. Next, she would add a garden filled with yellow flowers, their petals slightly uneven but bursting with childlike joy. A blue sky followed, carefully colored in gentle strokes to make the chalk last longer. Finally, 2 figures would appear, a tall one and a small one, holding hands, their stick figure smiles unwavering. But it was her calendar that drew the most attention from passing strangers. In the corner of each drawing, Mia meticulously created 7 rows of boxes, each representing a week. Every evening she would mark another X, counting the days since her mother's departure. She never missed a day, even when rain threatened to wash away her artwork. On those days she would sit under the bakery's awning, drawing her calendar on scraps of paper she collected. The locals had grown accustomed to her presence. Mrs. Rodriguez from the bakery would leave day-old pastries wrapped in paper napkins beside her. Mr. Chen from the convenience store made sure she had fresh chalk when her pieces grew too small to hold. Even the busy commuters began to slow their pace, watching as another X joined the growing collection on the sidewalk. Sometimes passing children would ask to join her, but Mia politely declined. "This is special," she would explain, her voice soft but firm. "It's so Mummy can find me when she comes back." She never spoke about where her mother went or why, but her drawings told a story of their own. Each house grew more detailed, each garden more elaborate, as if she were building a perfect home for her mother's return. The calendar now stretched several feet along the sidewalk, a visual diary of waiting. Day 1 showed a simple house with 2 stick figures. Day 45's house had curtains in the windows and smoke curling from the chimney. Day 89 featured a cat in the window and a bike leaning against the fence. Day 127's creation included a mailbox with Marshall family carefully printed in wobbly letters. What fascinated observers most was Mia's unwavering routine. She would arrive each day carrying her small backpack, filled with carefully wrapped chalk pieces and a worn photograph. Before beginning her drawing, she would kiss the photo showing a smiling woman with the same dark curls as Mia and prop it against the wall. "Today might be the day, Mummy," she would whisper, a ritual as consistent as the setting sun. The neighborhood watched, their hearts heavy with a mixture of admiration and concern. They witnessed her determination through summer heat and autumn chill, her small hands never faltering in their daily task. Some tried to ask about her living situation, but Mia had mastered the art of gentle deflection with a wisdom far beyond her years. "I'm okay," she would say, adding another flower to her garden. "Mummy said to be brave, and I am." As the days grew shorter and colder, Mia added more details to her drawings. Warmth became a theme. Fireplaces appeared in the houses, with exaggerated flames promising comfort. The stick figures gained scarves and mittens. The gardens, though continuing to bloom impossibly in her chalk world, now featured birds huddled in nests and squirrels gathering acorns. Each night, as darkness fell and the streetlights flickered on, Mia would carefully pack her chalk pieces away. She would stand back, studying her creation with serious eyes, then nod once as if confirming something only she could see. Before leaving, she would touch the newly drawn X on her calendar and whisper, "See you tomorrow, Mummy." Then she would disappear into the growing shadows, her small figure merging with the gathering dusk, leaving behind a sidewalk gallery of hope and patience that moved even the most hardened hearts in the neighborhood. Sarah Wilson once commanded respect in the halls of Stanford University's School of Education, her name synonymous with innovative childhood development programs. Her office walls had displayed countless awards, including the prestigious National Educator of the Year. Photos showed her beside senators and CEOs, all eager to support her groundbreaking work with traumatized children. But that life seemed like a distant dream now, as she huddled in her usual spot beneath the Harrison Bridge, watching a small girl create her nightly sidewalk art. 10 years earlier, Sarah's life had pivoted on a singular tragedy. Her daughter Emily, just shy of her 6th birthday, had been diagnosed with a rare form of leukemia. The medical bills had quickly overwhelmed her professor's salary, forcing her to seek alternative funding. She had partnered with the Children's Future Foundation, launching a nationwide campaign to build specialized trauma recovery centers for young cancer patients. The donations poured in, millions of dollars from people touched by Emily's story and Sarah's vision. But Emily never saw the centers built. She slipped away one winter morning, her small hand growing cold in Sarah's grip, while the sunrise painted the hospital room in shades of gold. Sarah had thrown herself into the foundation work afterward, determined to honor her daughter's memory. She never noticed the foundation's chairman systematically siphoning funds into offshore accounts until it was too late. The scandal broke spectacularly. Headlines screamed about missing millions, and Sarah's face appeared on national news, no longer the celebrated educator, but the supposed architect of America's biggest charity fraud. Despite her innocence, the evidence had been carefully stacked against her. Her signature appeared on documents she'd never seen, her computer filled with fabricated records. The foundation's chairman had vanished, leaving her to face the consequences alone. The legal battles drained what remained of her savings. Former colleagues turned their backs, universities rescinded their honors, and publishers pulled her books from shelves. Her home, her retirement fund, and her reputation vanished in a cascade of court orders and settlements. Within months, Sarah Wilson, PhD, became just another statistic, one of San Francisco's growing homeless population. Now, 5 years later, she watched Mia with a professional eye that even destitution couldn't dim. She recognized the signs of trauma in the child's methodical drawing routine, in the careful way she rationed her chalk colors. The calendar marks particularly worried her children processing grief, often created such tangible measurements of loss. But it was Mia's solitude that truly broke her heart, reminding her so much of Emily in those final hospital months. Sarah had first noticed Mia 3 weeks ago during one of San Francisco's notorious summer fogs. The child had sat alone in the growing darkness, determinedly completing her nightly drawing despite the moisture threatening to wash it away. Something in her quiet persistence had drawn Sarah from her usual hiding spot. She'd watched as Mia produced a worn photograph, kissing it before propping it carefully against the wall, a ritual Sarah understood all too well. The locals viewed Sarah with typical urban wariness, steering clear of her corner under the bridge. They didn't see the woman who had once testified before Congress on childhood education reform. They missed the keen intelligence in her eyes as she observed Mia's developing artistic expressions, noting how the house drawings grew more elaborate as the child processed her emotions. Even in her current state, Sarah couldn't stop being an educator. She kept Emily's photograph in a waterproof bag, along with her daughter's last letter written in wobbly children's script, asking for a puppy she would never get to pet. Sometimes, in the quietest hours before dawn, Sarah would read it by streetlight, tracing the crayon words with trembling fingers. She recognized the same longing in Mia's nightly art gallery, the same desperate hope for a future that might never arrive. Despite her circumstances, Sarah had maintained detailed journals of her observations, scribbling in salvaged notebooks with stubby pencils. She documented Mia's artistic development, noted patterns in the child's behavior, and recorded snippets of conversations she overheard. Old habits died hard, and somewhere beneath the layers of loss and survival, Dr. Sarah Wilson still lived, still analyzed, still cared, still sought to understand and help children in crisis. The irony wasn't lost on her that she now lived beneath a bridge named after Harrison Enterprises, the same corporation that had declined to investigate her case when she begged for help during the scandal. But as she watched Mia add another X to her Sidewalk calendar, Sarah felt a familiar stirring of purpose. Perhaps she had lost everything for a reason. Perhaps this small artist with her chalk dreams needed exactly what Sarah had left to give: understanding, patience, and the expertise of someone who knew all too well how children cope with loss. Cedar Street's community dynamics had shifted dramatically in recent months, tension simmering beneath its well-maintained Victorian facades. Shop owners held hushed meetings about the homeless problem, their eyes darting toward Sarah's corner beneath the Harrison Bridge. Residents complained about property values dropping, attributing the decline to the increasing presence of street dwellers rather than the soaring San Francisco housing market. The Thompson family, temporary guardians of Mia, maintained a carefully crafted image of charitable concern. Their Victorian home stood 3 blocks from Mia's nightly art gallery, its fresh paint and manicured garden projecting prosperity and respectability. Martha Thompson, with her perfectly highlighted hair and designer volunteer t-shirts, chaired the neighborhood association. Her husband Richard served on the local business council. They spoke eloquently at community meetings about maintaining standards, while quietly pocketing the support checks meant for Mia's care. The child protection system's failures became increasingly apparent to those who bothered to look closely. Social workers, overwhelmed with cases and drowning in paperwork, conducted cursory checks that never revealed how Mia spent her evenings alone on the sidewalk. The Thompsons had mastered the art of bureaucratic manipulation, showing pristine report cards from a school Mia hadn't attended in months and medical records from appointments that never happened. Mrs. Rodriguez from the bakery found herself caught between compassion and commerce. Her regular customers complained about sitting near windows that faced the homeless woman, yet she couldn't bring herself to stop leaving food for Mia and occasionally Sarah. Mr. Chen's convenience store became a battlefield of conscience as his business partner pressured him to call the police whenever Sarah appeared, while he secretly kept a box of chalk behind the counter for Mia. The neighborhood watch meetings grew increasingly heated. Young tech professionals new to the area argued for cleaning up the streets to protect their investments. Long-time residents remembered when the community took care of its own but remained silent, afraid of drawing attention to their own financial struggles. The local police officer, Detective James Miller, found himself making more frequent patrols, torn between his duty to respond to complaints and his growing concern for Mia's welfare. Local media had begun to take notice. The San Francisco Chronicle ran a small piece about the sidewalk artist, though carefully avoiding mention of Mia's age or living situation. Social media buzzed with photos of her drawings, spawning hashtags and debates about urban decay and childhood poverty. Yet no one seemed to connect the dots between the child creating elaborate chalk dreams and the respected family 3 blocks away claiming to be her guardians. The church across the street held committee meetings about launching a homeless outreach program, while simultaneously installing sprinklers to discourage people from sleeping in their doorway. The irony wasn't lost on Sarah, who recognized several committee members from her previous life in academia. They walked past her without a glance, their conversations about Christian charity carrying across the street. The children in the neighborhood revealed the clearest mirror of adult prejudices. Some parents hurried their kids past Mia's art gallery, clutching small hands and whispering warnings about stranger danger. Others allowed brief interactions but hovered nervously nearby. A few children, usually those from humbler apartments rather than restored Victorians, would leave small treasures beside Mia's drawings, candy bars, friendship bracelets, notes of encouragement. At the heart of these community tensions, Mia continued her nightly ritual, oblivious to the social currents swirling around her. Her chalk calendar grew longer, her house drawings more detailed, while adults argued about property values and social responsibility in heated neighborhood meetings. The contrast between her innocent artistry and the community's complex response created an uncomfortable mirror for Cedar Street's residents to examine their own humanity. Detective Miller had begun keeping his own quiet log of observations. He noted how the Thompsons' story changed slightly with each telling, how Mia's school records showed perfect attendance despite her visible presence on the street during school hours, how Sarah, despite her disheveled appearance, watched over the child with professional attention. But proving negligence required resources his department couldn't spare, and disrupting a placement in an overwhelmed foster system needed more than suspicion. As autumn approached, the community's fractures deepened. The neighborhood association proposed new regulations about sidewalk art. The business council discussed increased security patrols. The local school board received anonymous tips about residency fraud. Beneath these official movements, a current of whispers flowed about the Thompsons' sudden financial comfort, about Sarah's past glimpsed in old news clippings, about a child who spent her evenings creating art instead of doing homework. Cedar Street had become a microcosm of society's larger struggles with compassion, responsibility, and justice, all centered around a 5-year-old girl with a box of chalk and an unwavering hope for her mother's return. The moment that changed everything came on a Tuesday evening when the fog rolled in earlier than usual. Sarah had been observing Mia's routine for nearly a month, noting how the child's shoulders hunched increasingly against the growing autumn chill. That evening, something was different. Mia's usual methodical approach had given way to frantic energy, her chalk strokes harder, faster, almost desperate. The change in pattern triggered Sarah's long-dormant professional instincts. Years of studying childhood trauma responses had taught her to recognize the signs of escalating distress. The house in Mia's drawing gained dark windows, something she'd never included before. The stick figures stood further apart. Most tellingly, the carefully maintained calendar showed multiple X marks, as if Mia was trying to rush time forward. Sarah watched as Mia's small hand trembled, causing her to drop her last piece of blue chalk. The chalk rolled toward Sarah's hiding spot, coming to rest near her worn shoes. For a moment, both former professor and young artist froze, their eyes meeting for the first time. Sarah saw her own loss reflected in Mia's gaze, the same desperate hope she'd once seen in Emily's eyes. "Your blue chalk," Sarah said softly, her voice rusty from disuse. She picked up the piece carefully, holding it out like a peace offering. "The sky isn't finished yet." Mia hesitated, years of stranger danger warnings warring with her desire to complete her drawing. "I need it for the clouds," she finally whispered. "They're special today." Special clouds, Sarah kept her voice gentle, professional training kicking in automatically. "What makes them special?" "They're carrying messages to my mum." Mia took a small step forward. "Mr. Chen says clouds travel everywhere. Maybe they'll find her." Sarah's heart clenched. She recognized magical thinking, a common coping mechanism in children dealing with abandonment. "That's a beautiful thought," she said, still holding the chalk. "Would you like to tell me about your mom while you finish the clouds?" Mia studied Sarah with that peculiar intensity unique to children. "You don't look scary," she decided finally, "even though people say you are." "People are often scared of things they don't understand," Sarah responded, echoing words she'd written in her last published paper on childhood trauma. "Like when they don't understand why a very talented artist chooses to draw on sidewalks instead of paper." A ghost of a smile touched Mia's lips. "Paper can blow away. The sidewalk stays. She took another step forward. Did you lose someone too? The question hit Sarah like a physical blow. For a moment Emily's face flashed before her, not in the hospital bed, but laughing in their backyard, asking for one more push on the swing. Yes, she managed. My daughter. Her name was Emily. Mia finally crossed the remaining distance, accepting the chalk but not retreating. Was she good at drawing? She loved butterflies, drew them everywhere. Sarah smiled at the memory, even on the hospital windows. Mia's hand paused mid-stroke on her cloud. She was very sick. Sarah kept her voice steady, the way she'd trained herself to discuss trauma with young patients. The butterflies made her happy when she couldn't go outside. Mia absorbed this information with solemn consideration. Then, to Sarah's surprise, she began adding butterflies to her drawing, wobbly, childish ones floating around the house. So Emily can see them from heaven, she explained matter-of-factly. Sarah felt tears threatening for the first time in years. She watched as Mia continued adding butterflies, each one carrying a small message. Love you, Mom, Mississippi, you, Emily, come home soon. Would you like to know a secret? Mia asked suddenly, reaching into her worn backpack. She pulled out the photograph she kissed each evening, holding it out trustingly. This is my mom. Her name is Ashley. She promised to come back, but the Thompsons say she forgot about me. Sarah studied the photograph, her trained eye noting details: Ashley's waitress uniform, the tired smile, the way she held Mia as if afraid someone might take her away. She hasn't forgotten, Sarah said with certainty. Sometimes grown-ups have to solve big problems before they can come home. Mia's eyes filled with tears. That's what I think too, she whispered, but I'm running out of Sidewalk for my calendar. In that moment, watching Mia add the finishing touches to her cloud messages, Sarah made a decision that would set in motion events she couldn't possibly foresee. Her years of research, her understanding of childhood trauma, and her own experience of loss had prepared her for this moment. Someone needed to advocate for this child, and if that someone was a disgraced professor living under a bridge, so be it. Ashley Parker's reality was a far cry from the promises made by the glossy recruitment flyer that had lured her to Los Angeles. The guaranteed employment opportunity had turned into a nightmare of forced labor in a nondescript warehouse on the city's outskirts. Her world had shrunk to the dimensions of a sewing station, where she spent 14 hours a day assembling designer clothes that would sell for more than she made in a month. The fluorescent lights buzzed endlessly overhead as Ashley's fingers moved mechanically across fabric, her thoughts constantly drifting to Mia. She had trusted the Thompsons, distant relatives who'd offered to care for her daughter while she got established in her new job. The promised 2 weeks had stretched into months as her passport and phone were confiscated, her movements restricted to the warehouse and the crowded room she shared with 5 other women. Each night, Ashley secretly worked on a small project, a handmade doll crafted from fabric scraps she managed to smuggle from the sewing floor. The doll's dress matched the one Mia wore in the last photo Ashley had seen of her daughter, the image seared into her memory. She embedded tiny notes inside the doll's stuffing, messages she prayed would somehow reach her daughter. Mommy loves you, stay strong, I'm coming home. Her first escape attempt had come 6 weeks after arrival. She'd managed to slip away during a fire drill, making it 3 blocks before the warehouse's security team caught her. The punishment had been swift: no food for 2 days, and a warning that any word to Mia would result in consequences. The second attempt, 2 months later, ended before it began when another worker betrayed her plans to the supervisors. The third attempt had been more calculated. Ashley had spent weeks memorizing delivery schedules, noting which guards were more likely to take extended cigarette breaks. She'd saved half of her meager meals, trading them with other workers for information about the warehouse's layout. But on the planned day, she discovered her hidden cache of supplies missing and a new lock on the fire escape door. Now, watching another sunset through the warehouse's grimy windows, Ashley worked on her latest plan. The factory supplied clothes to major retailers, including Harrison Enterprises department store chain. Each garment required a quality control tag, and Ashley had begun carefully collecting the carbon paper used in the tagging process. At night, she pressed the papers between pages of the employee manual, using the ghost of ink to write letters to anyone who might help. "My name is Ashley Parker," she wrote in tiny letters. "I am being held against my will at," but she never knew the actual address, and the letters remained hidden in her thin mattress, along with the growing collection of notes to Mia. The doll, now nearly complete, sat in a hollow space she'd carved in her workstation, waiting for the right moment. The other women in the warehouse had their own stories of deception and lost families. Maria, who worked at the station next to Ashley, had 3 children in Mexico she hadn't seen in 2 years. Wei Chen had come believing she would study fashion design, only to find herself trapped in an endless cycle of 14-hour workdays. They shared what little food and comfort they could, passing silent messages through gestures and whispered words during bathroom breaks. Ashley learned to read the rhythms of the warehouse, which supervisors could be quietly defied, which ones delighted in finding reasons to dock their already minimal pay. She catalogued every detail that might aid her escape: the delivery truck that arrived every Tuesday at 3 p.m., the janitor who sometimes left the back door propped open while smoking, the shift change at midnight when the guards grew sleepy. But it was the Harrison Enterprises connection that gave her the most hope. The company's logo appeared on shipping manifests and quality control documents. Surely, she thought, a corporation that large would have oversight would notice if they investigated their supply chain. During rare moments alone, Ashley would trace the logo on shipping boxes, memorizing names and dates, building a mental record of everything she observed. The doll became her sanity project, each stitch a promise to Mia. She gave it dark curls like her daughter's, embroidered a tiny smile that matched Mia's photograph. When the work became unbearable, when her fingers bled from pin pricks and her eyes burned from strain, she would touch the doll hidden in her workstation and whisper, "Soon, baby, Mummy's coming soon." But as summer faded into autumn, Ashley felt her hope wavering. The Thompsons' occasional updates about Mia grew vaguer, more threatening. The last message had mentioned arrangements being made for more permanent care, a phrase that filled Ashley with cold terror. She knew she was running out of time, just as she knew that her next escape attempt would need to succeed, not just for her sake, but for all the women trapped behind the warehouse's unmarked doors. The Thompson family's deception was a masterpiece of suburban camouflage. Martha Thompson had orchestrated every detail, from the carefully curated Facebook posts showing an empty bedroom waiting for Mia's return, to the tearful testimonials at community meetings about the challenges of caring for a child whose mother had abandoned her. Behind their Victorian home's freshly painted facade, the truth was far uglier. The monthly support checks from Ashley, extracted through carefully worded threats about Mia's welfare, funded Martha's boutique shopping habits and Richard's golf club membership. The bedroom shown in social media posts remained pristinely empty, while Mia spent her nights in a converted garden shed, hidden from visiting social workers by strategic landscaping and neighborhood complicity. But Richard Thompson maintained the financial side of their scheme with cold efficiency. He had established a separate bank account for Ashley's payments, laundering them through his real estate business. Each threatening message to Ashley was carefully worded to avoid explicit blackmail, while ensuring maximum psychological impact. "Mia keeps asking about you. Shame if she had to go into the system because we can't afford to keep her." The Thompsons' participation in community organizations served as perfect cover. Martha's leadership role in the neighborhood association allowed her to deflect concerns about Mia's obvious neglect. Richard's position on the business council gave him influence over local security patrols, ensuring they stayed away from Mia's nightly drawing sessions. Their carefully cultivated image of struggling but devoted guardians fooled even the most observant neighbors. Their manipulation extended to the local school system. Forged doctor's notes explained Mia's absences, Homework assignments were completed in Martha's meticulous handwriting, then deliberately made messier to mimic a child's work. Report cards were doctored using software from Richard's office, creating a paper trail of normalcy that satisfied cursory inspections. The garden shed that served as Mia's room revealed the depth of their neglect. A thin mattress lay on the floor, surrounded by the few possessions Ashley had packed for what was supposed to be a temporary stay. The Thompsons kept it just comfortable enough to avoid obvious abuse allegations: a space heater in winter, a fan in summer, while pocketing the money meant for Mia's proper care. Their manipulation of Mia showed calculated cruelty. They fed her just enough to maintain appearances while ensuring she remained dependent. Her clothes, bought from thrift stores despite the support payments, were kept deliberately shabby to support their narrative of financial struggle. They encouraged her sidewalk art not from kindness, but because it kept her out of the house during dinner parties and neighborhood gatherings. Martha had mastered the art of public sympathy. "It breaks my heart," she would say at church meetings, dabbing carefully at dry eyes, watching her wait for someone who clearly doesn't want her. Meanwhile, she intercepted Ashley's desperate letters, collecting them as insurance against future investigations. Richard kept a detailed spreadsheet of their profits, disguised as charitable expenses in his business records. The Thompsons' scheme extended beyond Mia. They had identified other vulnerable families, offering temporary guardianship in exchange for monthly payments. Their Victorian home's basement held files documenting similar arrangements, each one a potential goldmine of blackmail material. They had turned desperation into a business model, exploiting the gaps in an overwhelmed social services system. Their greatest asset was their understanding of social prejudices. They knew that neighbors would rather believe in a sad story of abandonment than question the respectability of a prominent local family. They recognized that police would dismiss complaints about a well-connected business council member. They counted on the community's willingness to look the other way when presented with a plausible narrative. As autumn progressed, the Thompsons faced a new challenge. Ashley's payments had become irregular, threatening their comfortable arrangement. Martha began drafting more aggressive messages, while Richard explored legal options for gaining permanent custody. They discussed moving Mia to their basement, away from increasingly curious neighbors. Their conversations, held over expensive wine in their formal dining room, centered on maintaining control of their profitable ward. Yet they failed to notice the small cracks in their facade. Detective Miller's increased patrols made Richard nervous. Sarah Wilson's presence near their house triggered Martha's paranoia about exposure. Most significantly, they underestimated Mia herself. Her detailed drawings were creating a record of her life that contradicted their careful narrative. The Thompsons' world was built on appearance and control, maintained through a delicate balance of threats, manipulation, and social standing. But as with all houses of cards, it would take just one wrong move, one person asking the right questions, to bring their carefully constructed deception crashing down. They didn't realize that Mia's simple chalk drawings were already telling a story they couldn't control, one that would soon catch the attention of someone with the power to expose their schemes. Everyone's support means so much to us. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs a little hope today. Benjamin Harrison's corner office on the 48th floor of Harrison Tower offered a panoramic view of San Francisco Bay, but he rarely noticed it anymore. At 52, he had built Harrison Enterprises from a single department store into a retail empire spanning 3 continents. Forbes had recently estimated his net worth at $4.2 billion, yet he felt increasingly hollow with each charity gala and corporate achievement. The death of his wife Catherine 2 years ago had left him navigating a world that seemed increasingly meaningless. Their unable to have children had driven them to channel their energy into building the business, but Catherine had always insisted on maintaining their humanity. She had established the Harrison Foundation, ensuring that their success benefited others. Now, without her moral compass, Benjamin found himself going through the motions, announcing donations at galas, while feeling disconnected from any real purpose. His morning routine never varied. He arrived at 7 a.m. sharp, reviewed international market reports over black coffee, and met with his executive team at 9. Today's meeting focused on their Asian manufacturing partnerships, with his supply chain director, Michael Collins, presenting cost-saving projections that should have excited him. Instead, Benjamin found himself staring at the graphs, thinking about Catherine's last words, "Promise me you'll remember why we started this." They had started with a vision of ethical business practices and community investment. Now, examining the profit margins from their overseas operations, Benjamin felt a nagging discomfort. The numbers seemed too good, the costs too low. But questioning them meant potentially disappointing shareholders, facing board scrutiny, risking the empire he'd built. It was easier to sign the reports, maintain the status quo. His assistant, Margaret Wells, had worked with him for 20 years. She alone noticed his increasing distraction, the way he stared at Catherine's photo on his desk during lengthy conference calls. She witnessed his robotic responses at charity events, saw how he withdrew from the personal involvement that had once characterized his leadership style. But loyalty kept her silent, even as she watched him drift further from the man he used to be. The headline in the morning's Financial Times praised Harrison Enterprises' record profits, but buried on page 6 was a small article about labor concerns in the garment industry. Benjamin skimmed it during lunch, his attention caught by a quote about factory conditions in Los Angeles. Something about the details nagged at him. The location matched one of their major suppliers. He made a note to have legal look into it, then promptly forgot as his afternoon filled with merger discussions. His private elevator ride each evening offered moments of unwelcome reflection. Catherine had always used this time to share her observations about their employees, insisting they knew every worker's name, their families, their struggles. Now Benjamin rode in silence, surrounded by his reflection in the polished brass walls. The man staring back at him looked successful, tailored suit, confident posture, but his eyes held a weariness that even his wealth couldn't hide. The Harrison Foundation occupied the building's entire 4th floor, its modern offices a testament to corporate philanthropy. Benjamin had doubled its budget after Catherine's death, as if money could replace genuine engagement. He signed checks for children's hospitals, education initiatives, homeless shelters, all worthy causes that Catherine had championed. But he couldn't remember the last time he'd actually visited any of these projects, seen their impact firsthand. His evenings usually ended with business dinners or charity functions, but tonight he had declined all invitations. Instead, he found himself driving aimlessly through the city, something he hadn't done since the early days of building his company. Catherine had loved these drives, pointing out small businesses they could help, neighborhoods that needed investment. She would have noticed things he missed, like the small figure drawing on a sidewalk as the sun set. Benjamin hadn't planned to stop, but something about the scene, the child's focused determination, the elaborate chalk drawings, the calendar marked with X's made him break suddenly. He watched from his car as the girl carefully added another X, her movements precise despite the growing darkness. A woman in worn clothes hovered nearby, her protective stance triggering memories of how Catherine used to watch over their young employees' children in the store's early days. The scene disturbed his carefully maintained emotional distance. The girl reminded him of himself at that age, drawing store layouts in his father's failing shop, marking days until bill collectors would return. The homeless woman's careful attention echoed Catherine's insistence on looking out for their community's most vulnerable members. For the first time in 2 years, Benjamin felt something crack in his carefully constructed shell of isolation. As he watched, a well-dressed couple hurried past the scene, deliberately averting their eyes. Their behavior reflected his own recent years, seeing but choosing not to see, writing checks instead of taking action. Catherine would have been disappointed in what he'd become, a man who measured success in profit margins while forgetting the human stories behind the numbers. The girl's chalk calendar, stretching along the sidewalk, seemed to mock the expensive watch on his wrist. She measured time in hope and waiting, while he counted it in quarterly reports and board meetings. Her art, created with stub of chalk on rough concrete, held more genuine emotion than all the commissioned pieces in his corporate offices. Benjamin sat in his car until the girl finished her drawing and disappeared into the gathering darkness. The homeless woman remained, standing guard like a sentinel. He thought about calling his foundation directors, asking them to look into the situation. But Catherine's voice seemed to whisper in his mind, "Remember why we started this." They had started because they believed in direct action, in personal involvement, in seeing needs and meeting them face to face. Tomorrow, he decided, he would return. Not in his corporate capacity, but as the person Catherine had believed in, someone who could see beyond balance sheets to the human stories that needed attention. For the first time since her death, Benjamin felt a spark of genuine purpose, a reminder of the man he used to be. The unmarked warehouse on Los Angeles' industrial outskirts concealed a network of exploitation that reached far beyond its weathered walls. From the outside, it appeared unremarkable, just another garment factory in a city full of them. Loading docks received shipments of fabric and dispatched boxes of finished clothing bearing designer labels. Security guards patrolled with casual indifference, their real purpose hidden behind uniforms and clipboards. Inside, the operation ran with ruthless efficiency. 3 floors of sewing machines operated around the clock, their rhythmic whirring masking the sounds of human suffering. The workers, mostly women from various countries, were sorted by language to prevent communication and organized resistance. Each floor had its own supervisor, chosen for their ability to maintain control through a careful balance of threats and tiny privileges. The organization behind the operation had perfected their system over years. They recruited through legitimate-looking agencies, promising good wages and immigration assistance. Once workers arrived, their documents were confiscated for processing. Phone calls home were monitored, with family members' addresses carefully documented as insurance against escape attempts. The few who managed to contact authorities mysteriously disappeared, serving as warnings to others. The warehouse's connection to Harrison Enterprises remained carefully obscured through layers of shell companies and subcontractors. Orders came through intermediaries, payments flowed through offshore accounts, and quality control reports were falsified to meet corporate standards. The factory manager, David Chen, maintained immaculate paperwork that could withstand routine inspections, while keeping a separate set of books that revealed the operation's true nature. Workers like Ashley Parker were valuable assets, their skills and desperation making them ideal targets. The operation specifically sought single mothers, knowing their children could be used as leverage. They maintained detailed files on each worker's family, using this information to craft personalized threats that ensured compliance. The psychological manipulation was as carefully planned as the physical security measures. The warehouse's infrastructure reflected this dual purpose. The main floor's layout appeared normal during inspections: well-lit workstations, fire exits, basic brake facilities. But secondary locks engaged after hours, cameras monitored every corner, and the break room's vending machines required worker ID cards that tracked movements. The building's original windows had been replaced with reinforced glass, their opacity explained as climate control, but serving to hide the conditions inside. The regional managers like Chen reported to a shadowy board of directors who never visited the facility. Their communications arrived in encrypted messages, focusing solely on production quotas and profit margins. But the board maintained similar operations across multiple cities, each facility designed to be deniable and disposable if exposed. They had perfected the art of exploiting gaps in labor law enforcement and corporate oversight. The financial structure supporting the operation was equally sophisticated. Wire transfers passed through multiple countries before reaching their destination. Payroll records showed legal wages while actual payments amounted to pennies per hour. Profits were laundered through legitimate businesses, restaurants, nail salons, small import companies, all owned by silent partners in the organization. Quality control tags bearing Harrison Enterprises logo passed through Ashley's hands daily, each one a potential cry for help if she could find a way to mark them without detection. The tags underwent multiple inspections before shipping, but Ashley had noticed that the final checkers paid less attention to carbon copies. She carefully collected these duplicates, hoping to document the connection between her prison and the corporate giant that unknowingly supported it. The warehouse's location had been strategically chosen. Situated in an industrial zone with high turnover of temporary businesses, it attracted little attention from neighbors. Local police rarely patrolled the area, their resources focused on residential districts. The few inspectors who visited saw only what they were meant to see: a busy garment factory meeting production deadlines for major retailers. Security measures evolved constantly in response to attempted escapes. New cameras were installed after Ashley's first attempt, biometric scanners added after the second. Guards now photographed workers daily, comparing images to prevent impersonation. The loading dock's schedule became randomized to prevent planning around predictable patterns. Even the janitors underwent background checks and surveillance. Workers' communications were monitored through hidden microphones and cameras, their conversations analyzed for signs of rebellion. Those who spoke too much or asked questions found themselves separated from potential allies, moved to isolated workstations or different shifts. The psychological impact of this constant surveillance created an atmosphere of paranoia and helplessness that served the operation's goals. Yet despite these measures, small acts of resistance persisted. Workers developed subtle hand signals, passed notes hidden in garment seams, maintained mental maps of guard rotations. Ashley's handmade doll became a symbol of hope, its hidden messages a testament to human resilience. Each tiny act of defiance carried enormous risk, but the alternative, complete submission, seemed worse than any punishment. The operation's connection to Harrison Enterprises represented both danger and opportunity. Discovery could bring scrutiny that would shut down the warehouse, but it could also lead to retribution against workers' families. Ashley and others like her walked this razor's edge daily, gathering evidence while avoiding detection, hoping that someone in the corporate giant's hierarchy would notice discrepancies in their supply chain and start asking questions. As autumn approached, pressure to meet holiday shopping demands increased production quotas. Workers' already long hours extended further, rest periods shortened, and punishment for missed targets became more severe. The warehouse's true nature emerged more clearly under this stress, its facade of legitimacy wearing thin. But for the women trapped inside, each sunrise brought only another day of forced labor, their hopes for rescue fading like the summer light through smog-stained windows. Sarah Wilson's protective role in Mia's life evolved with the methodical precision of her former academic research. After their first chalk-sharing encounter, she began documenting every detail of the child's routine in a salvaged notebook, her educator's training transforming street corner observations into a comprehensive case study. The pages filled with precise notes, behavioral patterns, emotional indicators, and most importantly, signs of neglect that couldn't be explained away by simple poverty. Her years of experience working with traumatized children helped her recognize the subtle signs others missed. The way Mia hoarded her chalk pieces spoke of food insecurity. Her elaborate calendar system suggested an attempt to maintain control in an unpredictable environment. The increasing darkness in her house, drawing shadows in windows, heavy clouds overhead indicated growing emotional distress that needed intervention. From her vantage point beneath Harrison Bridge, Sarah established a careful routine of her own. She learned the neighborhood's rhythms when the Thompsons left for their various committee meetings, which neighbors could be trusted, how local police patrols timed their rounds. She mapped safe spaces where Mia could retreat if needed, noting which shopkeepers showed genuine concern for the child's welfare. Mr. Chen from the convenience store became an unwitting ally. Sarah observed his quiet kindness, the fresh chalk appearing mysteriously, the carefully wrapped sandwiches left where Mia drew. During rare, quiet moments, she would share her professional insights with him, explaining the significance of Mia's artistic changes. His growing understanding led to more strategic support, like keeping his store open later on cold evenings so Maya had a warm place to pause. Mrs. Rodriguez's bakery provided another safety point in Sarah's protective network. The baker's habit of leaving day-old pastries evolved into more substantial assistance after Sarah carefully explained signs of malnutrition she'd observed. Soon, proper sandwiches and fruit appeared alongside the pastries, though Mrs. Rodriguez maintained the fiction of disposing of expired food to avoid drawing attention. Sarah's academic training proved invaluable in documenting the Thompsons' neglect. She recorded dates, times, and witnesses for every concerning incident: Mia's inadequate winter clothing, missed school days, lengthy periods left unsupervised. Her notebooks filled with the kind of detailed observations that could support legal intervention, if only she could find someone willing to look past her current circumstances. The prejudices she faced as a homeless woman both frustrated and informed her efforts. Local residents who hurried past her on the street never suspected her professional background or noticed how carefully she positioned herself to monitor Mia's safety. Their assumptions about her mental capacity meant they spoke freely in her presence, revealing useful information about the Thompsons' activities and community dynamics. Each evening, after Mia completed her drawings, Sarah would translate the child's artwork into clinical observations. The increasing size of stick figures might indicate anxiety about abandonment. The repetitive house motifs suggested a preoccupation with stability and security. She noted how weather elements in the drawings corresponded to Mia's emotional states, more storms appearing after difficult encounters with the Thompsons. The hardest moments came when Mia's behavior triggered memories of Emily. Both girls shared the same determined spirit, the same creative approach to processing trauma. Sarah channeled her grief into more detailed documentation, knowing that her failure to save Emily might yet help her save Mia. Her extensive knowledge of child psychology helped her recognize when Mia's coping mechanisms needed support rather than intervention. Detective Miller's increased patrols initially worried Sarah, until she noticed his lingering attention to Mia's drawings. Using skills honed through years of academic collaboration, she began leaving carefully curated evidence where he would find it: pages from her observation notebooks, strategically forgotten when he passed. The detective's gradual shift from suspicious glances to thoughtful observation suggested her messages were having an impact. Sarah's protective role extended beyond physical safety. She found ways to support Mia's emotional development through subtle guidance. When Mia's drawings became particularly dark, Sarah would share stories about Emily's artwork, offering alternative perspectives and coping strategies. She taught Mia simple code words and safety signals, disguising them as games while building a safety network the child could access if needed. The arrival of Benjamin Harrison added new complexity to Sarah's calculations. His obvious wealth and influence could either help or harm Mia, depending on his motivations. Sarah applied her research skills to gathering information about him, noting his pattern of visits, his reactions to Mia's art, the way he seemed to struggle with internal conflicts while watching the child draw. As autumn progressed, Sarah's role grew more crucial. The Thompsons' behavior showed increasing signs of stress, their careful facade cracking under unknown pressures. She noted more frequent arguments behind their Victorian windows, observed their growing aggression toward Mia during brief public interactions. Her documentation became more urgent, her protective presence more constant. Using discarded newspapers and borrowed library computers, Sarah began researching Harrison Enterprises' charitable foundation. Her academic experience helped her identify potential allies within the organization, people whose professional focus aligned with Mia's needs. But she carefully compiled evidence that would appeal to their specific programs and priorities, building a case that could bypass the Thompsons' social barriers. Each night, after ensuring Mia's safe return to the Thompsons' property, Sarah would review her notes by streetlight. Her academic thoroughness had once earned her international recognition, now it served a more personal mission. She knew from bitter experience how systems could fail vulnerable children. This time she was determined to create a record so comprehensive, so irrefutable, that it couldn't be ignored no matter how respectable the Thompsons appeared or how discredited she had become. The first signs of escalating community tensions appeared during the October Neighborhood Association meeting. Martha Thompson stood at the podium, her designer activist outfit carefully chosen to project concerned citizenship. "The sidewalk art situation has become untenable," she announced, gesturing toward photos of Mia's drawings. "While we all appreciate childhood creativity, the constant presence of undesirable elements has raised serious safety concerns." The meeting room at the Cedar Street Community Center quickly divided into factions. Young tech professionals, recent transplants to the neighborhood, nodded enthusiastically at Martha's thinly veiled references to Sarah's presence. Property values dominated their whispered conversations, smartphones ready to document any potential disturbance to their carefully curated urban lifestyle. Long-term residents showed more hesitation. Mrs. Rodriguez, still wearing her bakery apron, stood up despite her usual shyness at such meetings. "The child brings life to our street," she argued, her accent thickening with emotion. "And the homeless woman, she protects Mia, causes no trouble." Her words triggered immediate pushback from the association's newer members, their concerns about enabling behavior drowning out her defense. Mr. Chen watched silently from the back, noting how Richard Thompson's business council connections influenced the conversation. Every time someone raised questions about Mia's welfare, Richard smoothly redirected the discussion to property values and community standards. The convenience store owner recognized the tactical maneuvering from his previous life as a corporate lawyer before family obligations brought him to running a small store. Local media caught wind of the controversy when a tech blogger posted viral photos of Mia's elaborate chalk calendar. The San Francisco Chronicle sent a junior reporter, Emma Parker, to cover the neighborhood dispute. Her initial human interest story about a child artist evolved as she noticed discrepancies in the Thompsons' carefully crafted narrative. Detective Miller attended the next association meeting in an unofficial capacity, observing the growing rift in the community. Martha Thompson's faction pushed for increased police patrols and anti-loitering ordinances. Counter-proposals from Mrs. Rodriguez and her supporters suggested creating a designated community art space, tacitly legitimizing Mia's presence. The debate spilled onto social media, with competing hashtags reflecting the neighborhood's division. Savicidar Street competed with Protect Mia across local networks. Online arguments attracted attention from advocacy groups on both sides, turning a local issue into a proxy battle for broader social conflicts about gentrification and community responsibilities. Sarah observed these developments with growing concern, noting how the increasing scrutiny affected Mia's artwork. The child's drawings grew more furtive, her previously bold colors becoming muted as she tried to attract less attention. The calendar continued, but other elements of her sidewalk gallery showed signs of stressed darker clouds, more enclosed spaces, figures drawn smaller and further apart. Martha Thompson leveraged the controversy to enhance her public image, appearing on local news segments about neighborhood preservation. She portrayed herself as a concerned guardian protecting community standards while dealing with a troubled child's needs. Her performances were masterful, bringing tears at perfectly timed moments when discussing the burden of caring for an abandoned child. The church across the street found itself caught in the crossfire. Their newly installed sprinkler system, intended to discourage homeless sleeping, attracted criticism from parishioners who recognized Sarah's protective role in Mia's life. The pastor's sermons began incorporating vague references to community obligations and the dangers of judgment, carefully avoiding direct confrontation with the Thompsons' substantial weekly donations. Benjamin Harrison's periodic appearances added another layer of tension. His expensive car and corporate demeanor attracted attention from both factions, those seeing him as a potential ally in cleaning up the street, and others worried about outside interference in community matters. His obvious interest in Mia's artwork sparked rumors and speculation about his motives. Emma Parker's continued investigation led her to question the Thompsons' role more deeply. Her attempts to verify Mia's school attendance met with bureaucratic obstacles. Interviews with neighbors revealed carefully worded concerns about the child's living conditions. The reporter's growing file of inconsistencies attracted her editor's attention, pushing the story toward more serious investigation. The Neighborhood Watch program, once focused on routine safety patrols, became another battleground. New members, encouraged by Martha Thompson, began documenting Sarah's movements and interactions with Mia. Longer-term volunteers resisted this surveillance, some quietly warning Sarah about planned patrols or scheduled inspections. As winter approached, the community's fractures deepened. The Thompsons proposed new regulations requiring permits for any public art, even temporary chalk drawings. Counter-proposals suggested establishing a community art program with pointed references to guardian participation requirements that would force the Thompsons to demonstrate their actual involvement in Mia's life. Local business owners faced increasing pressure to choose sides. Mr. Chen's convenience store and Mrs. Rodriguez's bakery became unofficial headquarters for Mia's supporters, while newer establishments aligned with the Thompsons' vision of neighborhood improvement. The economic implications of these choices added another layer of stress to already strained community relationships. The tension reached a new level when Martha Thompson announced plans for a community standards committee with authority to remove unauthorized artwork and restrict public space use. The proposal's thinly veiled target was clear, but its presentation as a safety measure made opposition difficult without appearing to disregard legitimate community concerns. Benjamin Harrison's investigation into his company's supply chain began as a routine compliance check, triggered by that nagging article about labor conditions. He assigned a junior analyst, Rachel Martinez, to review their Los Angeles manufacturing contracts, expecting nothing more than standard reassurances. Instead, her preliminary report landed on his desk with a series of red flags that couldn't be ignored. The numbers didn't add up. Production costs from their main supplier were significantly below industry standards, even accounting for volume discounts. Labor expenses showed suspicious patterns, perfect consistency month after month, regardless of seasonal fluctuations. Most concerning were the quality control reports, showing impossibly low defect rates for hand-sewn garments. Rachel's investigation hit unexpected roadblocks. Requests for facility inspections were deflected with elaborate excuses. Employee records appeared comprehensive but lacked basic verification details. The supplier's corporate structure revealed a maze of shell companies, each layer obscuring the operation's true ownership. Her growing frustration sparked Benjamin's long-dormant investigative instincts. He began cross-referencing delivery schedules with local traffic patterns, noting discrepancies between reported shipping times and actual distances. Security footage from Harrison stores showed delivery trucks arriving at unusual hours, deviating from documented routes. Small details accumulated workers' signatures that looked too similar, inspection stamps with microscopic inconsistencies. The deeper Benjamin dug, the more his corporate armor cracked. Catherine's voice seemed stronger in his mind, reminding him of their early days investigating supplier ethics. He remembered her insistence on personally visiting factories, her attention to workers' living conditions. The growing evidence of exploitation in his supply chain felt like a betrayal of her principles. His board of directors reacted predictably to his concerns. They cited profit margins, shareholder obligations, and competitive pressures. The chairman, Robert Maxwell, took him aside after one particularly heated meeting. "We all admired Catherine's idealism," he said smoothly, "but business requires pragmatism. Some questions are better left unasked." That night, reviewing Rachel's latest findings, Benjamin found himself staring at a quality control tag with his company's logo. Something about the serial number caught his attention, a barely perceptible pattern that suggested deliberate marking. When enhanced, microscopic dots revealed a desperate message: "Help us. Trapped. Ashley P." The name Ashley triggered a connection. He remembered Mia's Sidewalk art, The calendar counting days, the child's mention of her mother's name. The possibility seemed remote, yet he couldn't shake the feeling of connection. He asked Rachel to focus her investigation on employee records, looking specifically for anyone named Ashley. But internal resistance to his investigation grew. Anonymous emails suggested he take a vacation, for his health board members raised concerns about his emotional stability since Catherine's death. The chairman scheduled a special meeting to discuss succession planning. A thinly veiled threat to his leadership. Benjamin found an unexpected ally in Margaret Wells, his longtime assistant. She remembered Catherine's influence on company policy and shared his growing unease about their supply chain. Her network of administrative contacts provided access to records that officially didn't exist, revealing more connections between the Los Angeles facility and other suspicious operations. The evidence pointed to a systematic exploitation scheme operating under his company's nose. Worker complaints disappeared into bureaucratic voids. Safety violations were documented, then mysteriously resolved without action. Financial audits showed perfect compliance achieved through carefully constructed false records. His corporate counsel advised extreme caution. Even investigating these allegations creates liability, they warned. Any connection to labor violations could devastate our stock price. Their concern for corporate interests over human welfare crystallized something in Benjamin's mind. He began moving assets quietly, preparing for the possibility that saving his conscience might cost him his company. Rachel's investigation expanded to include Harrison Foundation records, searching for any connection to the Thompsons. She discovered grant applications rejecting their requests for child care funding, citing incomplete documentation. The timing aligned with Mia's first appearance on Cedar Street, suggesting a deeper story behind the child's situation. Benjamin's growing obsession with the case worried his inner circle. Board members whispered about erratic behavior and unhealthy fixations. His focus on a single child's sidewalk art and a possible connection to labor violations seemed incomprehensible to those who had never known the man he used to be, the one who had built his company on principles as well as profits. Late one night, reviewing security footage from the Los Angeles facility, Benjamin noticed something in the background of a loading dock shot. A partially visible worker matched Ashley's description from Mia's photograph. The timestamp showed midnight activity on a day the facility reported being closed, confirming his suspicions about false documentation. He faced a pivotal decision. Pursuing the investigation meant risking everything: his company, his position, his reputation. The board had made it clear they would fight any attempt to expose potential violations. Yet ignoring the evidence meant betraying not just Catherine's memory, but his own fading sense of right and wrong. The Thompsons' threats began subtly, masked as concern for community standards. Martha's social media posts increasingly referenced unfortunate situations and difficult decisions ahead. Her carefully worded emails to the neighborhood association suggested that some children might require more structured environments for their own safety. Richard Thompson escalated matters through his business connections. Local shop owners who had shown kindness to Mia received visits from health inspectors with surprising frequency. Mr. Chen's convenience store faced sudden licensing reviews. Mrs. Rodriguez discovered her bakery's lease renewal had become complicated due to unexpected paperwork issues. The psychological warfare against Mia intensified. The Thompsons began removing her art supplies from the garden shed, claiming she had lost the privilege through undefined misbehavior. They limited her outdoor time, using community complaints about sidewalk obstruction as justification. Each restriction came wrapped in a show of regretful necessity for witnesses. Their manipulation extended to financial pressure. Richard's accounting background proved useful in creating complex paper trails showing extensive expenses for Mia's care. These documents painted a picture of devoted guardians struggling with mounting costs, justifying their continued demands for support from Ashley while pocketing the funds for themselves. Martha's performance at community meetings became increasingly theatrical. She would dab at carefully dry eyes while describing their sacrifices for Mia's welfare. Her presentations included selective photographs showing empty dinner plates and unmade beds, evidence of behavioral issues that conveniently omitted their own role in creating such conditions. They targeted Sarah's presence with calculated precision. Anonymous complaints about homeless encampments increased. Police reports mentioned suspicious behavior near schools. Martha's neighborhood watch group distributed flyers about stranger danger, featuring a description that closely matched Sarah's appearance. The Thompsons' strategy included isolating potential allies. They spread rumors about Mr. Chen's immigration status, hinting at regulatory concerns that could arise from helping Mia, Mrs. Rodriguez received anonymous letters questioning her food safety practices, each coinciding with instances of her kindness toward the child. Detective Miller's increasing interest in the situation prompted more aggressive countermeasures. Richard leveraged his business council connections to suggest budget reviews for community policing programs. Martha's social circle began reporting suspicious activities around Miller's patrol areas, forcing him to divide his attention. Their most insidious tactics targeted Mia's emotional stability. They began telling her that her mother had started a new family, that the continued financial support meant Ashley was choosing comfort over her daughter. Each cruel suggestion was delivered with a show of sympathy, destroying the child's confidence while maintaining their caring facade. The garden shed that served as Mia's room became a tool for control. Heat would malfunction on cold nights, repairs delayed while Martha posted online about contractor scheduling difficulties. The space grew increasingly sparse as they removed privileges. Books, toys, even adequate bedding, while documenting each removal as a response to misbehavior. Their documentation grew more sophisticated. Richard created spreadsheets tracking every penny allegedly spent on Mia's care, inflating costs while hiding their actual neglect. Martha maintained a detailed diary of invented incidents, building a case for claiming Mia was beyond their control, if authorities ever investigated. The Thompsons' exploitation extended beyond Mia. Their basement files revealed similar arrangements with other vulnerable families, each one carefully pressured and documented. They had turned desperation into a business model, using their respectable image to shield increasingly bold manipulations. As pressure mounted from Benjamin Harrison's appearances and Detective Miller's interest, the Thompsons accelerated their plans. Martha began researching private boarding schools, preparing to remove Mia from increasingly suspicious observers. Richard explored legal options for claiming abandonment, aiming to sever Ashley's rights permanently. Their campaign against Sarah intensified as they recognized the threat her observations posed. They filed formal complaints about her presence, citing safety concerns and property values. Martha's neighborhood watch group began photographing any interaction between Sarah and Mia, building a file of suspicious behavior. The Thompsons' world thrived on appearance and control, maintained through a delicate balance of threats, manipulation, and social standing. Each move was calculated to maintain their image while tightening their grip on Mia and her mother's support payments. But they failed to notice how their increasing desperation made them sloppy, leaving evidence of their schemes in ways their previous caution would have prevented. Their greatest miscalculation was underestimating Mia herself. The child's art had created an unintended record of their treatment, a visual diary that attracted exactly the kind of attention they had worked so hard to avoid. As autumn turned to winter, the Thompsons found their carefully constructed facade beginning to crack, threatened by the very visibility they had cultivated for so long. The corporate crisis at Harrison Enterprises erupted on a grey Monday morning when Rachel Martinez's complete investigation report landed simultaneously on Benjamin Harrison's desk and in the anonymous tip box of the State Labor Department. The 300-page document detailed systematic labor violations, human trafficking connections, and a complex web of financial fraud that implicated several board members. Benjamin sat in his corner office, watching dawn break over San Francisco Bay as his phone exploded with urgent messages. The board demanded an emergency meeting. Legal counsel scrambled to contain the damage. News alerts showed Harrison Enterprises' stock price beginning a steep decline as early trading responded to rumors of impending scandal. Chairman Robert Maxwell arrived unannounced, his usual smooth demeanor cracking under stress. "This is a disaster, Benjamin," he snapped, pacing the polished floors. "Years of careful work, billions in market value, all at risk because you couldn't leave well enough alone." His fingers drummed anxiously on Catherine's framed photo, prompting Benjamin to quietly move it out of reach. Rachel's report proved impossible to dismiss. She had meticulously documented every connection, every suspicious transaction, every manipulated record. Most damaging were the quality control tags. She'd collected hundreds of them, each bearing microscopic distress messages from workers trapped in the Los Angeles facility. The evidence created an undeniable pattern of corporate negligence at best, active complicity at worst. The board meeting that followed descended into chaos. Long-standing alliances fractured as directors sought to distance themselves from the growing scandal. Benjamin watched his father's old friends transform into corporate sharks, each trying to save themselves at the expense of others. The chairman demanded his resignation, presenting it as the only way to protect shareholder value. Benjamin's response shocked them all. Instead of capitulating, he activated contingency plans developed over months of investigation. Private security teams hired without board knowledge secured company servers and documents. Key whistleblowers, including workers from the Los Angeles facility, had already been moved to safe locations. Most importantly, he had transferred controlling interest in the company to a blind trust, effectively blocking any immediate attempt to remove him. The corporate machinery turned against him with frightening efficiency. His email access was cut. Security guards received orders to restrict his movements. Former allies suddenly had full schedules when he called. But Benjamin had anticipated each move, Catherine's voice in his mind helping him stay one step ahead of the corporate politics he'd navigated for decades. Media attention intensified as fragments of the story leaked. Business reporters camped in the lobby, hoping to catch board members for comments. Social media erupted with hashtags calling for boycotts of Harrison stores. The company's carefully maintained image of corporate responsibility crumbled under the weight of emerging evidence. Margaret Wells proved invaluable during the crisis. Her decades of maintaining Benjamin's schedule had given her intimate knowledge of company operations and personalities. She coordinated with Rachel to ensure crucial evidence reached appropriate authorities while avoiding internal sabotage attempts. Her quiet efficiency kept information flowing despite increasing opposition from board loyalists. The human trafficking connection proved especially explosive. Rachel's investigation had uncovered links between the Los Angeles facility and international trafficking networks. The discovery brought federal authorities into the case, elevating the crisis beyond corporate damage control. Benjamin found himself in lengthy meetings with FBI agents, sharing information that implicated several board members in human trafficking operations. The crisis reached a new level when Benjamin received an unmarked envelope containing recent photographs from the Los Angeles facility. Among them was a clear image of Ashley Parker, Mia's mother, working at a sewing station. The timestamp showed the photo was taken within the past week, confirming his suspicions about the connection between the labor violations and the child artist who had first caught his attention. Chairman Maxwell made one final attempt to contain the situation, offering Benjamin a generous retirement package in exchange for his silence. The offer came with thinly veiled threats about unfortunate accidents and family considerations. Benjamin recorded the conversation, adding it to the evidence file already shared with federal authorities. The company's stock price continued its freefall as more details emerged. Institutional investors demanded answers. Retail partners threatened to cancel contracts. The board split into factions, each trying to blame others for the growing scandal. Benjamin watched decades of corporate empire building unravel, feeling a strange sense of peace despite the chaos. Catherine's influence seemed stronger than ever as he navigated the crisis. He remembered her insistence on ethical business practices, her attention to human costs behind profit margins. The empire they'd built together had strayed far from those principles after her death. Now, facing its possible destruction, Benjamin felt closer to her than he had in years. The final confrontation came during a shareholders' meeting hastily convened to address the crisis. Benjamin stood before hundreds of angry investors, his voice steady as he detailed the full scope of the investigation. He offered no excuses, no corporate spin, just brutal honesty about the corruption that had infected his company and his own role in allowing it through negligence or willful blindness. The meeting ended with trading suspended and federal agents serving warrants on several board members. Benjamin watched his corporate world collapse, knowing his decision to expose the truth would cost him dearly in financial terms. But as he thought of Mia's Sidewalk calendar counting days until her mother's return, he understood that some costs were worth paying. The rescue operation began at midnight on a moonless Thursday, coordinated through encrypted communications between Benjamin's private security team, federal agents and local law enforcement. Detective Miller, whose quiet investigation had paralleled Benjamin's corporate probe, provided crucial intelligence about local police shifts and response patterns. Sarah Wilson's detailed observations proved invaluable during planning. Her notebooks contained precise information about the Thompsons' schedules, community patrol patterns, and most importantly, Mia's daily routines. The operation required synchronized actions at multiple locations: the Los Angeles facility, where Ashley was held, the Thompsons' Victorian house, and the garden shed where Mia spent her nights. The first phase targeted the Los Angeles warehouse. FBI tactical teams, armed with blueprints obtained through Rachel's investigation, approached from multiple angles. Security cameras were disabled simultaneously, cutting off warnings to facility supervisors. The timing coincided with shift changes when attention typically focused on worker headcounts rather than external threats. Inside the warehouse, Ashley and other workers heard only muffled thuds as entry teams breached secondary doors. Years of enforced silence had taught them to work through any disturbance, their sewing machines maintaining steady rhythms even as rescue approached. The first indication of change came when emergency lights flooded the production floor, followed by authoritative voices announcing liberation. Simultaneously, local police surrounded the Thompsons' house. Detective Miller personally supervised this phase, knowing the couple's connections might trigger last-minute interference. Martha and Richard Thompson were arrested quietly, their protests about misunderstandings fading as evidence folders appeared. Their carefully maintained social facade crumbled under the weight of documented exploitation. Benjamin coordinated operations from a mobile command center, watching live feeds from both locations. His corporate expertise helped anticipate and counter last-minute attempts by board members to obstruct justice. Private security teams protected key witnesses while federal agents secured documents linking the warehouse operation to Harrison Enterprises' compromised board members. The most delicate phase involved Mia. Child welfare specialists, briefed by Sarah's detailed reports, approached the garden shed carefully. They found the child awake, as if she had sensed the night's significance. Her few possessions were already packed, including her precious chalk collection and the worn photograph of her mother. Sarah's presence nearby provided crucial reassurance during these tense moments. Ashley's reunion with Mia was orchestrated with careful attention to trauma-informed practices. Medical teams had evaluated and cleared both mother and child, ensuring their physical health before the emotional impact of reunion. The meeting occurred in a secure location, witnessed by counselors prepared to support both through the initial shock and joy of reconnection. The operation revealed darker aspects of the Thompson scheme. Their basement yielded files documenting other exploited families, evidence of widespread blackmail and manipulation. Each discovery added charges to their growing list of criminal complaints, while providing leads for additional rescue operations across multiple states. Media attention exploded as the story broke. National news crews descended on Cedar Street, trying to piece together how a child's sidewalk art had helped expose both corporate labor trafficking and sophisticated domestic exploitation. Benjamin's role transformed from disgraced CEO to key whistleblower in the public narrative, though he deflected attention to the true heroes Sarah, Detective Miller, and the victims who had risked everything to leave messages on quality control tags. Sarah's expertise proved crucial during post-rescue support. Her background in childhood trauma and education helped create transition plans for Mia and other affected children. Her detailed documentation provided foundations for criminal prosecutions while identifying necessary support services for survivors. The academic precision she had maintained, even while homeless, became a valuable asset in recovery planning. The rescue operation's success sparked wider investigations into similar schemes nationwide. Other corporations began internal audits of their supply chains, fearing similar exposures. Social services departments reviewed their monitoring procedures, acknowledging how the Thompsons had exploited systemic weaknesses. The ripple effects promised lasting changes in both corporate and social welfare practices. Community responses ranged from shock to soul-searching. Cedar Street residents who had supported the Thompsons' Community Standards campaign faced uncomfortable realizations about their own biases. Those who had shown kindness, Mr. Chen, Mrs. Rodriguez, and others, found their simple acts of humanity highlighted as examples of moral courage in national news coverage. The operation's final phase involved securing evidence for prosecution while ensuring survivor support. Benjamin devoted substantial resources to funding recovery services, establishing secure housing and counseling programs for rescued workers and their families. His corporate expertise, once used to maximize profits, now served to create sustainable support systems for trafficking survivors. As dawn broke over San Francisco, the operation's full scope became clear. Dozens of workers freed, multiple trafficking networks exposed, corrupt corporate leaders arrested, and most importantly, a mother and daughter reunited after months of enforced separation. The night's events had transformed live feeds from law enforcement operations into raw material for future case studies in corporate accountability and community responsibility. The legal battles erupted across multiple jurisdictions as dawn broke over the rescued workers. Federal prosecutors filed human trafficking charges against board members of Harrison Enterprises, while state authorities pursued the Thompsons for child exploitation and fraud. The cases quickly became complex webs of corporate law, human rights violations, and criminal conspiracy. Corporate prosecution focused first on Chairman Robert Maxwell and his inner circle. Evidence from Rachel's investigation revealed their direct knowledge of labor violations and active participation in covering up worker abuse. Their emails, carefully recovered from deleted servers, showed calculated decisions to prioritize profit over human welfare. The prosecution's case strengthened as more whistleblowers came forward, encouraged by Benjamin's public stance. The Thompsons' legal defense crumbled under the weight of their own meticulous documentation. Their basement files, intended to protect them through blackmail, instead provided prosecutors with detailed evidence of systematic exploitation. Martha's carefully maintained diary, meant to justify their treatment of Mia, revealed patterns of calculated abuse. Richard's financial records traced every misappropriated payment from vulnerable families. Child custody proceedings became another battlefield. The Thompsons' legal team attempted to maintain their guardianship claims over Mia, arguing that stability in her current placement served her best interests. Sarah's detailed observations proved crucial here, her professional background adding weight to documentation of neglect and psychological manipulation. Her notebooks, filled with dated entries and behavioral analysis, provided the court with compelling evidence of the Thompsons' unfitness as guardians. Ashley's testimony before the grand jury moved even seasoned prosecutors. She described the systematic way workers were trapped, how their children were used as leverage, and the psychological torture of knowing Mia waited for her return. Her detailed account of attempting to send messages through quality control tags demonstrated both the workers' desperation and their remarkable resilience. Benjamin found himself navigating complex legal waters. His role as both whistleblower and CEO created unique challenges as prosecutors built cases against his board members. Corporate lawyers argued fiduciary duty, while federal prosecutors sought his testimony about management decisions. His personal fortune faced significant risk from shareholder lawsuits, yet he maintained his commitment to supporting survivor services. Community support manifested in unexpected ways during the legal proceedings. Mrs. Rodriguez organized court attendance rotas, ensuring friendly faces were present during difficult testimony. Mr. Chen provided security camera footage that contradicted the Thompsons' claims about Mia's care. Local residents who had witnessed Mia's daily art ritual came forward with photographs and observations, building a timeline of neglect that strengthened the prosecution's case. The legal team, representing Mia's interests, faced delicate challenges. They needed to prove neglect and exploitation while protecting the child from further trauma. Sarah's expertise in childhood psychology helped shape questioning strategies that gathered necessary evidence while maintaining sensitivity to Mia's emotional well-being. Her academic background provided crucial context for explaining how Mia's artwork documented her psychological state. International aspects of the trafficking case complicated prosecution efforts. Evidence linked the Los Angeles facility to broader trafficking networks, requiring coordination with multiple law enforcement agencies. Benjamin's corporate connections proved valuable here, helping track financial transactions across international boundaries. The case expanded to include violations of international labor laws and human rights conventions. Civil litigation followed criminal charges as survivors sought compensation for their exploitation. Class action lawyers descended on Harrison Enterprises, representing workers from multiple facilities. Benjamin made the controversial decision to support these lawsuits, providing evidence that strengthened cases against his own company. His stance alienated remaining board members but earned respect from human rights advocates. The Thompsons' neighbors faced their own legal challenges. Those who had served on community committees that enabled the exploitation worried about liability. Martha's neighborhood watch group members consulted lawyers about their role in harassment campaigns. The legal ripples spread through Cedar Street, forcing residents to confront their complicity in ignoring obvious signs of abuse. Media coverage of the legal proceedings created pressure for systemic change. Shocking testimony about corporate negligence led to calls for stronger oversight of supply chains. The Thompsons' exploitation of social service gaps prompted demands for child welfare reform. Each court session added momentum to growing movements for corporate accountability and child protection. Detective Miller's methodical police work provided crucial foundations for multiple prosecutions. His careful documentation of community patrol patterns revealed the Thompsons' manipulation of local law enforcement. His observations of corporate security at the Los Angeles facility helped establish patterns of worker confinement. His professional reputation lent credibility to evidence that might otherwise have been dismissed. The legal battles highlighted systemic failures that had enabled both corporate and domestic exploitation. Prosecutors identified gaps in regulatory oversight, weaknesses in child welfare monitoring, and failures of community responsibility. Each case added to growing evidence that existing systems had prioritized appearance over accountability, allowing abuse to flourish behind respectable facades. Your support means everything to us. If this story moved you, if it made you think differently about the world around us, please consider subscribing to our channel. Together we can share more untold stories that need to be heard. Every subscription helps us continue this meaningful journey. The aftermath of the rescue operation unfolded like ripples in a still pond, touching every aspect of the lives involved. Media crews swarmed Cedar Street, their satellite vans creating a temporary village as they competed for the best angles on what they called the Sidewalk artist story. But the real story was happening away from the cameras in quiet moments of healing and reconnection. Ashley and Mia's reunion took place in a private room at a secure facility, carefully orchestrated by trauma specialists. The moment Mia saw her mother, she dropped her cherished chalk pieces, racing across the room with a cry that brought tears to even the most seasoned counselor's eyes. Ashley caught her daughter in an embrace that seemed to make time stand still, both of them sobbing and laughing simultaneously. "You waited for me," Ashley whispered, touching the worn photograph Mia had kept. "You never stopped believing." Mia pulled back just enough to see her mother's face. "I drew for you every day," she said proudly. "Sarah helped me keep count." The mention of Sarah brought another dimension to their reunion. The former professor had become an integral part of Mia's support system. Her academic expertise now focused entirely on helping mother and child rebuild their relationship. She worked closely with counselors, providing detailed insights into Mia's emotional journey as documented through her Sidewalk art. Benjamin Harrison's role transformed from corporate titan to advocate for survivor support. His press conference announcing the establishment of a survivor assistance fund drew international attention. "We cannot undo the past," he stated, Catherine's photo visible on his desk, "but we can ensure the future holds more hope than horror." The rescued workers from the Los Angeles facility faced their own challenges in recovery. Many, like Ashley, reunited with families they hadn't seen in months. Others required extensive support to overcome trauma and rebuild their lives. Benjamin's resources and Sarah's expertise combined to create comprehensive support programs addressing everything from housing to job training. Cedar Street itself underwent a profound transformation. The sidewalk where Mia had drawn became an impromptu memorial, with visitors leaving chalk pieces and messages of support. Mrs. Rodriguez's bakery and Mr. Chen's store turned into unofficial community centers where people gathered to process the events and examine their own roles in what had transpired. The media coverage brought unexpected consequences. While some reporters sensationalized the story, others dug deeper, examining systemic failures that had allowed both corporate and domestic exploitation to flourish. Mia's chalk calendar became a powerful symbol, featured in documentaries about child welfare reform and corporate accountability. Detective Miller's quiet dedication received recognition as the full scope of his investigation became public. His methodical gathering of evidence, supported by Sarah's detailed documentation, had provided crucial foundations for multiple prosecutions. The police department faced both praise for his work and criticism for not acting sooner on community concerns. Harrison Enterprises underwent radical restructuring. Benjamin's decision to prioritize ethics over profits initially shocked shareholders, but as public support grew, the company's new direction gained unexpected backing. The board's criminal elements removed, the corporation began implementing transparency measures and ethical supply chain practices that set new industry standards. Sarah's role evolved from homeless observer to respected advocate. Her academic credentials, once stripped away by scandal, found new validation in her detailed documentation of Mia's case. Organizations working with traumatized children sought her expertise, recognizing the value of her unique combination of professional knowledge and personal experience. The Thompsons' Victorian house, seized as evidence, stood empty as authorities discovered more victims of their exploitation scheme. Each new revelation added to the community's collective guilt about ignoring warning signs. The neighborhood association, once focused on property values, began discussing ways to create genuine support systems for vulnerable residents. Recovery specialists worked with Mia to transition her art from a coping mechanism to a form of expression. Her sidewalk calendar, photographed and preserved by caring neighbors, became part of an exhibition about childhood resilience. Each X mark told a story of hope that refused to die, of love that persisted despite seemingly insurmountable obstacles. As autumn turned to winter, Cedar Street's transformation continued. The community that had turned a blind eye to suffering now actively sought ways to prevent future exploitation. Benjamin's foundation funded programs to support vulnerable families, while Sarah's insights helped shape new approaches to identifying and preventing abuse. The most profound changes occurred in quiet moments, Ashley helping Mia create art on proper paper instead of sidewalks, Sarah sharing her academic knowledge to support other traumatized children. Benjamin discovering that losing his empire had given him something more valuable, a chance to honor Catherine's memory by truly helping others. Personal healing began in small moments, away from media attention and public scrutiny. Mia and Ashley moved into a comfortable apartment provided by Benjamin's foundation, its walls soon covered with proper art supplies and colorful drawings. The Sidewalk calendar transformed into a different kind of counting, marking days of reunion rather than separation. Ashley's recovery proved more complex. Nightmares of the warehouse haunted her sleep, while everyday sounds, sewing machines, delivery trucks, even the hum of fluorescent lights could trigger panic attacks. But she found strength in Mia's resilience, in her daughter's ability to transform trauma into art. Together, they attended therapy sessions where drawing became their shared language of healing. Sarah's redemption unfolded unexpectedly. Her detailed documentation of Mia's case led to academic interest in her unique approach to trauma observation. Universities that had once shunned her now invited her to speak about child psychology and community intervention. Her experience of homelessness added powerful authenticity to her professional insights, creating a new model for trauma-informed care. The mother-daughter bond between Mia and Ashley strengthened through shared healing activities. Ashley learned to participate in Mia's art, their drawings evolving from simple house pictures to complex stories of survival and hope. The handmade doll Ashley had crafted in the warehouse became a symbol of their endurance, displayed prominently in their new home alongside Mia's preserved chalk drawings. Benjamin's personal transformation surprised even him. The loss of his corporate power brought unexpected freedom, allowing him to focus on what truly mattered. He found himself spending evenings with survivors' families, learning their stories, understanding the human cost of corporate negligence. Catherine's influence seemed stronger than ever as he rebuilt his life around service rather than profit. Sarah's relationship with Mia evolved as both child and former professor adapted to new circumstances. Their chalk-sharing ritual transformed into regular art therapy sessions, where Sarah's academic knowledge merged with deep emotional understanding. She helped Mia process her experiences through color and form, documenting the child's healing journey with the same precision she had once applied to her trauma. The psychological impact of rescue and reunion manifested differently for each survivor. Ashley joined support groups with other warehouse workers, their shared experiences creating bonds of understanding that transcended language barriers. Mia's art therapy sessions became a model for helping other children process similar traumas, her journey inspiring new approaches to healing. Professional counselors noted the unique aspects of each family's recovery. Ashley's determination to rebuild her life drew strength from Mia's unwavering faith in her return. Sarah's presence provided crucial stability, her combination of professional expertise and personal compassion creating a bridge between trauma and healing. Benjamin's resources ensured practical support matched emotional care. Mia's artistic expression evolved beyond simple house drawings. Her new works explored themes of freedom, family, and hope, using colors and forms that reflected growing emotional complexity. Art therapists documented her progress, noting how her compositions moved from isolation themes to images of connection and community. But Sarah found unexpected healing in her role as mentor and advocate. Her academic redemption allowed her to reclaim her professional identity while maintaining the deep empathy born from her years of homelessness. She developed new methodologies for trauma observation, incorporating insights gained from her time watching over Mia. The survivors' healing process influenced community recovery. Cedar Street residents, confronting their own role in enabling exploitation, sought ways to make amends. Support groups formed, addressing both individual healing and collective responsibility. The neighborhood's transformation became a case study in community redemption. Ashley's strength emerged in unexpected ways. Despite her ongoing recovery, she began speaking to advocacy groups about labor trafficking, her quiet testimony powerful in its authenticity. Her partnership with Sarah in developing survivor support programs demonstrated how personal experience could inform professional intervention. Benjamin discovered that funding recovery programs offered deeper satisfaction than corporate success. His interaction with survivors and their families filled the void left by Catherine's death, giving purpose to his wealth and meaning to his life. He found himself learning from those he helped, their resilience teaching him about true strength. The healing process revealed unexpected connections. Mia's art therapy sessions inspired other survivors to explore creative expression. Ashley's survivor advocacy empowered others to share their stories. Sarah's academic rehabilitation opened doors for innovative trauma recovery approaches. Each individual's journey contributed to a larger tapestry of healing and hope. As winter approached, the signs of recovery multiplied. Mia's nightmares decreased, replaced by dreams of future possibilities. Ashley's panic attacks became less frequent as she built a new life with her daughter. Sarah's expertise gained recognition in academic circles, validating her years of careful observation. Benjamin found peace in using his resources to support genuine transformation rather than corporate profits. Community reconciliation began in the heart of Cedar Street, where Mia's chalk drawings had once documented isolation and hope. The neighborhood association, under new leadership, transformed its focus from property values to community welfare. Former critics of Sarah's presence now sought her expertise in identifying vulnerable residents and creating support systems. Mrs. Rodriguez's bakery became a symbol of community redemption. The space that had once secretly provided food to Mia now openly hosted support group meetings. Her display cases featured photographs of the neighborhood's transformation, including preserved images of Mia's sidewalk art. The aroma of fresh bread mixed with conversations about healing and responsibility. Mr. Chen's convenience store evolved into an informal community center. The security cameras that had documented the Thompsons' neglect now watched over a space where residents gathered to discuss positive changes. His quiet kindness during Mia's ordeal inspired others to create a neighborhood watch program focused on protection rather than persecution. The church across the street underwent its own reformation. The sprinkler system installed to deter homeless individuals was removed, replaced by a welcome center offering resources and support. Sunday sermons addressed themes of collective responsibility and redemption, while practical programs provided assistance to vulnerable community members. Detective Miller's increased presence took on new meaning. His patrol car, once viewed with suspicion by some residents, became a symbol of community protection. He worked closely with neighborhood groups to develop early warning systems for identifying exploitation, while building bridges between law enforcement and vulnerable populations. Local businesses that had once aligned with the Thompsons' vision of community standards now participated in support programs for survivors. Store windows displayed information about trafficking awareness and child welfare resources. The Business Council, under new leadership, prioritized ethical practices and community support over profit margins. The sidewalk where Mia had drawn became a gathering place for healing. Residents organized art therapy sessions for neighborhood children, using creativity to build connections across social barriers. Sarah's expertise guided these activities, helping transform a space of loneliness into one of community expression. Community education programs emerged from the crisis. Workshops on recognizing signs of exploitation and trafficking drew unexpected attendance. Residents who had ignored warning signs now learned to identify and report concerns. The neighborhood's painful experience became a foundation for preventing future abuse. The Victorian houses along Cedar Street shed their role as facades for days for respectability. Homeowners who had once prioritized property values now opened their spaces for survivor support programs. Gardens that had hidden Mia's shed became community spaces where children could safely play and create. Mrs. Rodriguez and Mr. Chen received formal recognition for their quiet resistance to the Thompsons' influence. Their small acts of kindness, maintained despite pressure and threats, became examples of moral courage in community education programs. Their businesses thrived as residents deliberately supported those who had shown compassion during the crisis. The media's continued interest served unexpected purposes. Documentary crews capturing the neighborhood's transformation helped residents process their roles in both the crisis and recovery. Public attention kept pressure on institutions to maintain reforms while highlighting positive changes in community response to vulnerability. New residents moving into Cedar Street found a community transformed by its experience. The neighborhood's history became part of orientation packages, not as a source of shame but as a lesson in collective responsibility. Long-term residents shared their insights about recognizing and preventing exploitation, creating a culture of awareness and support. Former members of Martha Thompson's Neighborhood Watch Group redirected their energy toward positive change. Their organizational skills, once used for surveillance and control, now supported community outreach programs. Their understanding of local dynamics helped identify and address new challenges before they became crises. The physical space of Cedar Street reflected its spiritual transformation. Gardens once designed to impress now grew vegetables for community kitchens. Porches that had displayed wealth became gathering spaces for support groups. The neighborhood's architectural beauty gained deeper meaning through its commitment to genuine community welfare. Sarah's continuing presence served as both reminder and inspiration. Her transition from scorned homeless observer to respected community advisor demonstrated the possibility of redemption and growth. Her academic expertise, combined with lived experience, helped guide the neighborhood's development of sustainable support systems. As winter approached, Cedar Street's transformation manifested in countless small ways. Children played freely where once they had been hurried past with warnings about stranger danger. Elderly residents found support from neighbors who had previously ignored their needs. The community's response to its failures became a model for others facing similar challenges. The neighborhood's reconciliation emerged most clearly in quiet moments, residents greeting Sarah with respect rather than fear, children creating art in safe spaces, newcomers finding welcome rather than suspicion. Cedar Street's painful past evolved into determination to protect all its members, transforming a crisis of conscience into a commitment to genuine community. New beginnings blossomed from the ashes of scandal and exploitation. Sarah Wilson's education program, launched with support from Benjamin's Foundation, transformed her years of sidewalk observation into a revolutionary approach to trauma-informed teaching. The program, housed in a renovated Victorian near Cedar Street, combined academic rigor with deep understanding of childhood trauma. Sarah's curriculum drew from her unique experience, professional expertise shaped by years of homelessness and careful observation of children in crisis. Her classroom walls displayed preserved photographs of Mia's chalk calendar, teaching future educators about the subtle signs of trauma in children's art. Students learned to recognize distress signals that traditional training might miss, while community members contributed real-world perspectives on supporting vulnerable families. Ashley Parker's recovery became intertwined with the program's development. Initially joining as a guest speaker, she discovered a talent for connecting with other survivors. Her quiet strength resonated with students learning about trauma response, while her insights helped shape practical intervention strategies. The handmade doll she'd created in captivity became a powerful teaching tool, demonstrating how creativity could survive in the darkest circumstances. Benjamin's Foundation evolved beyond simple charitable giving into a force for systemic change. Drawing on his business experience, he created sustainable funding models for social support programs. The Foundation's headquarters, established in his former corporate offices, became a hub for innovative approaches to preventing exploitation and supporting recovery. The integration of academic expertise with lived experience created unprecedented learning opportunities. Sarah's students witnessed firsthand how theoretical knowledge could be applied to real community needs. Ashley's survivor perspective added depth to traditional teaching methods, while Benjamin's business acumen ensured programs remained financially viable. Professional educators, initially skeptical of Sarah's unconventional methods, couldn't argue with the results. Her graduates demonstrated exceptional ability to identify and support traumatized children. The program's success attracted attention from universities nationwide, leading to partnerships that expanded its reach while maintaining its essential connection to community experience. The Foundation's approach to education extended beyond traditional boundaries. Evening classes welcomed community members seeking to understand trauma and recovery. Weekend workshops brought together professionals, survivors, and residents to share insights and develop new support strategies. The building buzzed with energy as theory met practice in transformative ways. Sarah's redemption in academic circles came full circle when her innovative methods became the subject of scholarly research. Universities that had once shunned her now sought her expertise in developing trauma-informed curricula. Her published papers, combining rigorous methodology with insights gained through personal experience, challenged traditional approaches to childhood trauma response. A new generation of educators emerged from the program, carrying its principles into schools and communities nationwide. They understood trauma not just as an academic concept, but as a lived reality requiring comprehensive response. Their work created ripples of positive change, touching countless lives through informed, compassionate intervention. The program's impact manifested in practical ways throughout Cedar Street and beyond. Teachers learned to recognize signs of distress in children's artwork and behavior. Community members developed skills for supporting vulnerable neighbors. The neighborhood's painful experience transformed into valuable lessons about prevention and response. Regular workshops brought together unlikely allies, educators, law enforcement, business leaders, and survivors to develop comprehensive approaches to community protection. Detective Miller shared insights about identifying exploitation, while Mrs. Rodriguez and Mr. Chen demonstrated how small acts of kindness could create crucial support networks. As the program grew, it maintained its connection to its origins. Mia's preserved chalk drawings reminded students that behind every theory lay real children needing support. Ashley's presence ensured survivor voices remained central to all interventions. Sarah's journey from homelessness to respected educator demonstrated the power of combining professional knowledge with personal understanding. Benjamin found unexpected fulfillment in supporting these educational initiatives. His business skills, once focused on profit margins, now served to create sustainable programs for social change. The Foundation's success in combining academic excellence with practical support became a model for others seeking to address complex social issues. The education program's greatest strength lay in its ability to bridge divides between academic theory and lived experience, between professional expertise and community wisdom. It created space for multiple perspectives while maintaining focus on its essential purpose, preventing future exploitation through informed, compassionate intervention. Healing and growth manifested in profound ways as winter approached Cedar Street. Mia's art therapy program, developed collaboratively by Sarah and professional counselors, became a model for trauma recovery. Her journey from sidewalk artist to healing advocate inspired similar programs nationwide, while her own artwork evolved from documentation of waiting to celebration of reunion. The transformation in Mia's artistic expression reflected deeper healing. Her drawings now burst with color and movement, featuring families embracing, butterflies soaring, and houses with open doors. Sarah documented these changes with academic precision, creating a valuable resource for understanding childhood trauma recovery through creative expression. Ashley's involvement in her daughter's therapy deepened their bond while aiding her own recovery. Mother and daughter painted together, their shared artwork expressing both past pain and present joy. The simple act of choosing colors freely became a powerful statement of reclaimed autonomy, washing away the warehouse's grey memories with vibrant new experiences. Family bonds strengthened through carefully structured activities. Benjamin's foundation provided spaces where survivors could rebuild relationships damaged by separation and trauma. The program's success led to expansion, creating safe environments where other families could heal together through art, play, and shared experiences. Sarah's professional expertise guided the development of age-appropriate healing activities. Her understanding of childhood development helped create programs that supported both individual recovery and family reunification. The approach recognized that healing happened not in isolation, but within the context of restored relationships and community support. The art therapy space itself reflected this philosophy of healing. Bright windows replaced the darkness of Mia's garden shed, while supplies of every imaginable color stood ready for creative expression. Children's artwork covered the walls, each piece telling a story of recovery and hope. The environment itself became part of the therapeutic process, providing safety and encouragement for emotional exploration. Community changes supported this healing process. Cedar Street residents, once focused on property values, now valued the laughter of children at play. Gardens once manicured for show now grew wildflowers, their natural beauty reflecting the community's embrace of authentic over artificial perfection. Mia's progress inspired other survivors. Her ability to transform trauma through art encouraged others to find their own paths to healing. The program expanded to include different forms of creative expression, recognizing that each person's journey required unique tools and approaches. Ashley's recovery gained strength through helping others. Her gentle guidance of newer program participants added purpose to her healing journey. The doll she'd crafted in captivity became a teaching tool, demonstrating how creativity could survive and sustain hope in the darkest circumstances. Benjamin found unexpected healing in witnessing these transformations. His grief for Catherine melded with newfound purpose as he watched families rebuild lives his company had once threatened. The Foundation's work became a fitting tribute to her memory, turning corporate resources toward genuine human needs. The ripple effects of healing touched every corner of Cedar Street. Mrs. Rodriguez's bakery hosted art displays celebrating survivor creativity. Mr. Chen's store became a gathering place where children felt safe to share their stories through drawing. The neighborhood itself became part of the healing process, its transformation reflecting and supporting individual recovery. Sarah's documentation of these changes added to growing research on community-based trauma recovery. Her academic papers now included insights gained from observing real healing in action. The work attracted attention from mental health professionals nationwide, leading to broader implementation of art-based therapy programs. As the program evolved, it maintained focus on individual needs within collective healing. Each participant's journey received careful attention, while community connections provided crucial support networks. The approach recognized that sustainable recovery required both personal growth and social reintegration. The most profound changes appeared in quiet moments, Mia spontaneously hugging her mother, Ashley laughing freely, Sarah sharing professional insights without fear of judgment. These small victories, multiplied across many lives, created a tapestry of healing that transformed personal trauma into collective growth. Lasting impact emerged through systematic changes that reached far beyond Cedar Street. Policy reforms, sparked by the case's publicity, strengthened oversight of corporate supply chains and enhanced protections for vulnerable children. Benjamin's testimony before congressional committees helped shape new legislation requiring transparency in manufacturing operations and accountability for labor violations. Social awareness transformed from local concern to national movement. Media coverage of Mia's story and the subsequent investigations prompted communities nationwide to examine their own blind spots. Sarah's detailed documentation became a template for identifying signs of exploitation, while Ashley's experience informed new protocols for survivor support. The Harrison Foundation's influence extended through strategic initiatives. Benjamin redirected his business acumen toward creating sustainable support systems for trafficking survivors. His corporate connections, once used to maximize profits, now served to build networks of employment opportunities and rehabilitation services for those escaping exploitation. Educational institutions incorporated lessons from the case into their curricula. Sarah's methodology for observing and documenting child trauma became required reading in social work programs. Her combination of academic expertise and lived experience challenged traditional approaches to professional training, emphasizing the importance of practical wisdom alongside theoretical knowledge. Personal transformations rippled through the community. The Thompsons' former associates re-examined their own roles in enabling exploitation. Neighborhood watch groups nationwide revised their focus from property protection to community welfare. Local businesses developed new models for corporate responsibility that prioritized human dignity over profit margins. Law enforcement procedures evolved based on Detective Miller's experience. His methodical investigation became a case study in recognizing and responding to complex exploitation schemes. Police departments nationwide adopted new protocols for evaluating reports of child neglect and potential trafficking, emphasizing the importance of community connections and careful observation. The art therapy program's success inspired similar initiatives across the country. Mia's journey from sidewalk artist to trauma survivor advocate demonstrated the power of creative expression in healing. Treatment centers incorporated art-based approaches into their recovery programs, recognizing the unique ability of creativity to express and process trauma. Corporate accountability gained new meaning through Benjamin's example. His decision to prioritize ethics over profits, though initially costly, created a model for responsible business practices. Companies nationwide faced increased pressure to examine their supply chains and address labor violations, while investors began considering human rights records alongside financial returns. The impact on child welfare systems proved particularly significant. The Thompsons' ability to manipulate oversight procedures exposed critical weaknesses in existing protocols. New regulations required more thorough monitoring of guardian arrangements, while social workers received enhanced training in recognizing signs of exploitation. Community responses to homelessness shifted dramatically. Sarah's role in exposing the exploitation scheme challenged assumptions about homeless individuals' capabilities and worth. Cities nationwide re-examined their approaches to homeless services, recognizing the potential contributions of those society had previously marginalized. Mrs. Rodriguez and Mr. Chen's quiet resistance became a model for ethical business practices at the community level. Their small acts of kindness, maintained despite pressure and threats, demonstrated how local businesses could serve as crucial support networks for vulnerable individuals. Their example inspired other small business owners to prioritize community welfare over immediate profit. But the lasting impact manifested most clearly in changed attitudes and behaviors. Communities became more attentive to signs of exploitation, more willing to question respectable facades, more ready to support vulnerable members. The painful lessons of Cedar Street transformed into practical wisdom about collective responsibility and the importance of genuine rather than superficial community bonds. These changes, though significant, represented only the beginning of longer-term transformations. Each policy reform, each new program, each shifted attitude created foundation for further progress. The story of Mia's sidewalk art and its role in exposing exploitation became part of a larger narrative about community responsibility and the power of paying attention to those society often overlooks. The art exhibition opening at the San Francisco Modern Art Museum drew unprecedented crowds. Titled Chalk Dreams, The Art of Survival, the centerpiece featured high-resolution photographs of Mia's sidewalk calendar, preserved through careful documentation by neighborhood residents. Each image told part of her story, from the early simple house drawings to the complex emotional landscapes that emerged during her months of waiting. Sarah Wilson curated the exhibition, her academic expertise providing context for the artistic progression visible in Mia's work. Glass cases displayed her detailed observation notebooks alongside the photographs, offering insights into the psychological journey revealed through the child's art. The exhibition created a powerful narrative about trauma, resilience, and the human capacity for hope. Visitors moved silently through the gallery, many wiping away tears as they followed the chronological display. The calendar marks took on profound significance, each X representing a day of separation, hope, and determination. Ashley's handmade doll, carefully preserved, stood in a central case, its hidden messages of love now visible through gentle backlighting. The exhibition attracted attention from art critics and child welfare advocates alike. Reviews praised its raw emotional power, while highlighting its implications for understanding childhood trauma. Mental health professionals studied the progression of Mia's artistic expression, noting how her use of color and composition reflected her emotional state throughout the ordeal. Mrs. Rodriguez provided fresh pastries for the opening reception, while Mr. Chen helped organize community transportation to ensure Cedar Street residents could attend. The event became a celebration of not just artistic expression but community transformation. Benjamin's Foundation announced a permanent endowment for arts-based therapy programs, ensuring the legacy of Mia's Sidewalk art would continue to help others heal. Unexpected revelations emerged during the exhibition's second week. A visitor viewing Sarah's documented observations recognized similarities to another case, a young girl in Seattle who had drawn elaborate hopscotch patterns encoding messages about abuse. The connection sparked renewed interest in using children's public art as a diagnostic tool for identifying trauma. More profound was the discovery in Sarah's old academic files, found while preparing exhibition materials. Among her daughter Emily's hospital drawings was a butterfly pattern identical to ones Mia had incorporated into her sidewalk art. The seemingly impossible connection suggested a universal language of childhood resilience, transcending time and circumstance. A letter from Emily, written days before her death but never delivered, surfaced among Sarah's preserved documents. "Mummy," it read, "when I get better, can we help other kids draw their feelings?" The message seemed prophetic given Sarah's eventual role in Mia's story. The letter became part of the exhibition, its worn paper and childish handwriting offering powerful testimony to the cycles of loss and healing. Benjamin's research team uncovered more connections within Harrison Enterprises' archived records. Quality control tags from other facilities showed similar attempts at communication from trapped workers, suggesting Mia's story had parallels yet to be uncovered. These discoveries prompted expansion of the Foundation's investigation into labor exploitation. Detective Miller's review of cold cases revealed patterns connecting the Thompsons to other instances of guardian exploitation. Previous complaints, dismissed due to the couple's social standing, gained new significance. The findings led to reopening several cases, suggesting the full scope of their scheme remained to be discovered. Looking forward, the exhibition's impact promised to ripple through time. Mia, now attending regular school, began mentoring other children in art therapy sessions. Her gentle guidance of younger trauma survivors demonstrated how healing could transform victims into advocates, pain into purpose. The Harrison Foundation announced plans for a nationwide network of art therapy centers, each designed to incorporate lessons learned from Cedar Street. Sarah's trauma-informed education program would provide training for staff, while Ashley's survivor perspective would shape program policies. The initiative represented a concrete step toward preventing future exploitation while supporting recovery. New challenges emerged as the story gained wider attention. Other communities discovered similar cases of hidden exploitation, seeking guidance in addressing their own blind spots. The Foundation faced growing demands for assistance, balancing immediate needs with sustainable long-term solutions. The future held both promise and uncertainty. Questions remained about how best to prevent exploitation while supporting recovery. Yet the transformed Cedar Street community offered hope, demonstrating how awareness and action could create lasting change. Mia's Sidewalk art, preserved in photographs but alive in memory, continue to inspire new conversations about responsibility and redemption. The journey ahead would require continued vigilance and commitment. Benjamin's foundation prepared for expanded investigations into corporate supply chains. Sarah developed new training programs for educators and community leaders. Ashley strengthened survivor support networks. Their work suggested that while the story's first chapters had concluded, its impact would continue to unfold in unexpected ways. Dear friends, your incredible support means everything to us. If this story touched your heart, please consider subscribing to our channel and sharing it with your loved ones. Every like, comment, and share helps us reach more people with these important stories. Would you like to hear part 2 of this emotional journey? Let us know in the comments below. Share your thoughts and feelings about Mia's story. How did it impact you? What touched you the most? Together we can make a difference. Your engagement helps us continue creating meaningful content that matters. Thank you for being part of our community.